So David, you are the head of Messenger at Facebook. How many people use Messenger?
A little bit over 900 million.
Right. So that's, kind of getting close to 1/7 of the world's population, which kind of means by definition, any experiment you undertake is kind of a grand experiment. But what you're doing now seems especially ambitious. You have described a vision for Messenger as moving beyond apps. Can you describe how that's going to work? What the vision is there?
Sure. Well, actually, it's pretty simple. When you think about how many apps you've downloaded recently and how many have a home on your home screen and have push notifications enabled, that's kind of a list. Actually want to try to do something, you have the top 5 apps that you use a lot, and you can get a lot done. Like, if you want a car, you're going to use Uber or Lyft. If you want to buy something, you're probably going to go on Amazon, and if you're a Prime subscriber, you're going to get what you want really quickly. But then for everything else that you don't have an app on your home screen with push notifications enabled, you still have to use the mobile web on your mobile device. And mobile web is really not good still. It's pretty slow. It doesn't have identity. It doesn't have transactional capabilities at scale. And so as a result, finding what you want and getting it on mobile is still very, very hard. If you look at just commerce, about 65% of the traffic on top websites that sell anything come from mobile. But yet, share of checkout, actual transactions completed, are only 12% on mobile, and that's been the same number since 2012. So this is not working. And so we believe that messaging apps with identity enable you to potentially create a new experience that shorten the distance between what you want and getting it by leveraging threads as a space for third parties to actually build rich experiences that have identity, also transactional capabilities, and always have context. So it's almost like you decompose the experience of an app, like all of the UI that you have in an app, in the most relevant piece of UI or interaction at the time you need it. And so we believe that can change everything.
So to get what you want, you ask for it.
I mean, you can ask for it, or you can have buttons and UI as well, which is when we started opening up the platform at F8, everybody got really excited about bots, and I actually think that for the first 2 months of their existence on the Messenger platform, those were overhyped, but I definitely think that over the very long run, they're underhyped. And the reason for that is that the first early experiments are always tough. If you remember the first websites, they weren't that good. They were actually pretty ugly. And they weren't super functional, and they weren't enabling you to do much. The first couple of apps were really bad too. But I think that now we're starting to see really rich experiences inside of Messenger that actually solve a real problem and enables you to actually get what you want much faster than on mobile web.
Well, what's a good example? I mean, what are the kinds of things that I don't know about everybody else, but the apps that I use all the time still seem to work pretty well for me. What are the kinds of experiences I'm going to be able to have in Messenger now, in the future, as you envision it, that are going to make me say, well, I'm going to do this here and not go back to my home screen and use that app?
Well, I think that for the apps that have a place on your home screen, you're probably going to continue using your app. But how many of these are there? How many of these apps do you use on a regular basis on your home screen?
Yeah, well, I'm wondering though, one of the earliest integrations you've offered is Uber. I'm in Messenger, I'm talking with my friends, and then I'm getting a ride. Now the Uber app works just fine for me.
Right.
What's the argument for doing it in that context rather than simply going back?
So that's a great question, and I think it depends what you're trying to do. So there are 2 types of people. One, existing Uber or Lyft users, and those, including myself, when I arrive at an airport or I just want to ride by myself, will continue using the app. There's just no doubt about that to me. If you're not a user, though, and you discovered a capability, you can actually order a ride really, really quickly without installing an app and signing up and capturing your payment credential and all these things. So actually, if you're not a user, you can start using it there. But more importantly, if you still have the app, and you and I are basically trying to get together and I send you an address for some place to meet, then you can just tap on that link and get a ride right now. And you'll probably still use that when in a social context of a conversation, it actually makes it faster for you to get what you want. So it's not an or, it's like an and in this case. In some circumstances, it's actually faster to use it in Messenger. In some cases, it's actually faster to use the app, and you'll do what you can. But I think what we feel is more interesting is take an example of like ordering pizza, for instance. Like, unless you really, really like pizza, I doubt you have like, a pizza app on your phone. And like actually going to Messenger and going through a thread to order pizza really quickly with a combination of UI and conversational elements, I think is going to be much faster than you going on mobile web to do that or downloading an app for that. And so there's a very, very long tail and torso of experiences that currently are not experienced in apps, are not really experienced in mobile web because the experience is not that great, that will feel right at home inside of Messenger.
Well, so that goes to something that I'm really curious about. So Messenger as an extension of Facebook makes sense to me insofar as what do you do on Facebook? You go there to interact with your friends. And what's one thing you want to do with your friends? You want to chat with your friends. Right. So hence Messenger. And as we know, it was something that was originally done within the core of Facebook. And you broke it out. And that has been very successful as well. But that still feels like a far cry to me from, well, I'm going to go on Facebook to order a pizza, or I'm going to go on Facebook to buy shoes, or I'm going to go on Facebook to check into my flight. How did those things actually fit together? You sort of started to hint at that in your previous answer, but why is this something that Facebook is doing?
Well, because I think we're the best I think we're the best positioned to actually do that for several reasons. One, 900 million people on the platform. So, in the messaging world, it's the biggest messaging app that you can build a bot or an experience for. So that attracts a lot of developers. But not only 900 million people identified as just phone numbers. Like the beauty of Messenger is that you have full identity, not only on the side of the 900 million people using it, but also the 50 million businesses that are active on pages on Facebook that have identity. So you have identity on both pieces, on both sides, and that's actually really important. And then we have capabilities that we can bring together that are truly unique that will enable us to do that. There are lots of really good examples of that in a number of verticals. We're 2 months in, and we already have an amazing NBA bot, which serves like something really different, like a use case that's completely different than the types of use cases that you would have from traditional news, which is at the end of the game, at the end of each game, you actually have a recap of like all the video highlights of the game. And so tonight, after the game, you'll have like a carousel that you can swipe through of video highlights of the moment. And if you missed the game, and if you don't want to watch a full replay, you can actually catch like all of the most important moments of the game right there. That's one example. We have a fantastic partner in Crisis Text Line that enables you to report a friend who's in need of help, and they can prevent suicide. That's like amazing. So there are all kinds of different experiences that are coming together now. And to the question on airlines, like really right now, unless you're a real frequent flyer of one specific airline, which I realize many of you in this room might be, but the traditional users like don't fly that often, and when they do, they certainly don't pick the same airline all the time, so they don't have the app installed. So right now, for instance, with KLM, which is our first airline partner, when you book your flight, you get your itinerary automatically delivered inside of the KLM thread in Messenger. When it's time to check in, you get a nice bubble that says, hey, time to check in. You can just tap that thing, you get your boarding pass right there. If there's a flight change, or a delay or a gate change or anything, you can actually get the information right there. And if you're going to miss your flight or need to change it, you can have a conversational experience there and ask them to change the flight for you, and they do that on the fly, which is amazing because all of the experience happens in one canonical in-context thread. And so people who have used this new experience flying KLM just love it because it just makes their life a lot more simpler.
So I mean, that's like a plethora of use cases that I think go far beyond what a lot of people think of when they think of messaging.
Right.
And I think that's relevant to the news that you have to share today about something new that's happening on messages. First, if you could just describe that to folks, and then I have a follow-up question about
Sure.
that.
Well, you know, it's really something, so we're announcing today that we're taking a first stab at reinventing the inbox. So when you think about the inbox, like the inbox has been the same since the invention of the first early messaging systems. Like even in the really early days, it's always been this chronological list of threads, and that's it. And that's a lot of real estate on mobile to use for a thing where probably the first 5 threads are relevant to you at any given point in time, but then the rest has been taken care of by really good search and all kinds of different things. And so we're taking a first stab by launching a more modular inbox that, and it's basically called Home, so it's your home screen on Messenger. We have units in this new inbox that enables you to get a lot more utility from your inbox than you currently get. So for instance, when using Messenger, and this is something we're starting to roll out today, so it'll take a few days or weeks for everyone in this room to have it, but you'll be able to see who's active right now. So for a lot of people, actually finding who of their friends are active on Messenger right now is a great opportunity to have a conversation if you're bored and you want to talk to someone. You'll have a unit for birthdays, so you'll know which of your close friends have birthdays today and you can send them a message and be a better friend. You will have the ability to also have like a favorites, favorites unit where you can see the people you talk to the most so you can access them really quickly. And so those are a first series of units inside of the inbox, but gradually you're going to see more of those units that will enable you to discover the types of experiences that you might be able to find on Messenger in the future, but also most of your friends at the right time with the right context.
But so, for instance, I'll be able to have a list of my favorite bots that I interact with the
Right.
most. That's the kind of thing that you ultimately imagine
Yeah,
for
no,
that,
totally.
that home screen?
You'll definitely have not only friends, but also bots and businesses that you interact with in there, and more things in the future. But the real thing here is, this is real estate, and it's a lot of real estate, and it's the most visited place on Messenger or any messaging app is that thread list that we call inbox. And we just want to make it really, really useful to people and reinvent it completely because like it's about time. No one has done this before ever since the creation of the first inboxes.
I guess one thing that I find interesting, even just the nomenclature, that it's your home screen. Now, you know, when I talk about my home screen, you know, on my iPhone, I'm talking about the screen that shows me all my apps. If Messenger has a home screen, it's got my friends, it's got my favorites. Once it starts having my bots, my businesses that I interact with, that starts to feel like a mirror to me of what I have on the OS level of my sort of mobile experience. Is there a sense in which Facebook is trying to, and you are trying to create an experience that is so immersive that ultimately I just have one app on my phone and it's Messenger and I'm doing everything in that app?
Well, I can't say I dislike that future, but no, look, it really depends on whether we provide real value and utility for people. If you solve a real problem, then people use your product. If you don't, then people don't. And we believe that we can solve a lot of problems that haven't been solved in the mobile era, notably because of this nomenclature of you either have an app, and like, actually, funny stat, like 80% of the time spent on mobile is spent in native apps. And about 80% of that time is spent in 5 apps only. So like, you have a very, very top-heavy distribution of apps that are being actively used on a daily or weekly basis on your phone. And so what we want to do is enable all businesses, all developers out there to have a shot at building engaging experiences where people can access the right information, the right interaction at the right time. And messaging apps are the place to do that, and we believe Messenger is the place to do that because of all of the things we've discussed before. So we think we have a real shot at solving problems both on the business side, on the developer side, and also for people in their everyday life to make things more easy for them. And if we do, then we'll have a shot at becoming a more central part of their lives for sure.
How do you let people know, though? So I mean, we were talking backstage about WeChat in China. So this messaging paradigm is pervasive among Chinese users. It's not the same here. How are you really going to convince people that this is what they are really going to want to do? This is really how they want to have the better mobile experience?
By building it? Yeah, you need to build a better experience, and then people use it. Look, we have like a big chunk of our 900 million plus users are daily actives on Messenger. And so they visit Messenger a lot. And if we do a good job at building the product that they want, and that's going to actually solve real problems for them, then they will use it. Like that, I mean, we always, like when new technology comes in, at first it's intriguing and then you don't really use it. And then gradually, as more use cases that solves real problems for you come like to life, then you start using that new technology versus the old technology. And that's what we believe we need to do here.
Isn't one of the biggest obstacles, though, to really creating these experiences where chatting becomes sort of the second nature way of finding and obtaining the things that you want on your mobile device? Isn't that really dependent on how well the bot that you're chatting with can actually chat?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, don't you need to solve that sort of natural language problem before
I think
this
that,
is really successful?
I love that you asked this question because I think that this is a big misconception. So people think about bots as this like very geeky command line interface that only computer engineers want to use. And actually, we don't think that this is the solution. We think that it's going to take a while for machines to be able to have a conversation with you in a human-like way. We're still working on that, but we think it's far off still. But what we believe is the solution is actually a hybrid model. A hybrid model where you have UI, because if you have a choice of typing a word or tapping a button that has this word in it, like 99% of the people will choose the latter. And so what we believe is the way to go is this hybrid model where you have interface for those things that you need to interact with really quickly. And then you have the permanence of the thread that's in context. So for instance, if you're buying something, you can buy something within a very rich user experience and an interface. And then when you buy something, having that receipt in the thread and have customer support in the thread and have all of these things or updates on your delivery and shipping notifications and all these things in the thread, that makes sense. Like trying to actually say that you're going to have a conversation with everything is just not the way to go. And I think that that's a big misconception that people have when they think about messaging experiences is they think that everything is going to be conversational. We don't believe that.
But you have in the past said you've made an interesting observation in the past about conversation being the kind of original way of conducting commerce, you know, et cetera. I mean, could you speak to that? Are the web apps, are these a kind of a funny hiccup in the continuum of conversation that's generally how humans do things?
No, I think that, and again, we believe that like a hybrid approach is the way to go. And so if you go in a thread and ask for something of a specific like business, then the response doesn't have to be text. It can be UI too. And that's what we've demonstrated in a bunch of different experiences that you have out there, which is you ask what you want, But then you have buttons, you have interface that come in that thread, and then you can tap. You don't have to continue talking. The beauty of it, though, is let's say that like we go back to the KLM experience, or when you buy something, at some point something goes wrong. Today, that step is also broken. Like that's an interesting paradigm as well, which is that like today, we have segmented all of the interactions we have with businesses in very different interfaces and different chunks. So you go to the website or you call, you send an email or you fill up a form. And you have all of these interactions in so many different places in an app everywhere. And you need help suddenly, and now what do? You go to the website, you try to find a support email, you send a support email, they don't know who you are, you have to identify yourself, you have to say what order number you're trying to reference, or fill up a form, and then you never know when you're going to get a response. And so what we believe is the future of interactions between businesses and people exists inside of threads that are canonical. And that's a really powerful thing, because suddenly all of your interactions with business, whether it's UI or conversational, are contained in one historical contextual place where you have context of all of the last interactions you've had with the business. But like now, if I'm late for a flight, I can even type to KLM, I'm not going to make it, put me on the next one. I don't have to say who I am. I don't have to mention my reservation reference. I don't have to mention my flight number. And they know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm talking about. And like, it's really a lot easier. Right?
In a sense, they become your friend.
I don't know if they become your friends, but like they certainly become a more competent incarnation of the business that they represent.
Looks like it's all we have time for. Thank you so much, David. I appreciate it.
Of course.
Yeah.